So apparently we're all on like the baby picture program. So I'm Travis Winters. I'm the programs manager here. I've been here about a year. And I started out with the kid picture because I feel like I'm basically the same kid minus the Bugle Boys and being that excited on Christmas anymore. But I feel like it all kind of comes through in most of my work. So I'm from Corning, New York. I got into clay in college, which I went to a small community college. If you're kind of involved in ceramics, it's the most hilarious school because it was 2 wood kilns, 2 electric kilns, nothing else. So kind of getting into clay, I thought everybody wood fired everything. Having been involved in that for a while, that is really hilarious to me. But so I took the ceramics class, I got on the wheel, immediately fell in love with wheel throwing, and I was like, this is it, this is what I want to do. Made pots forever, kind of like functional pots, learning to throw. And then kind of towards, I went from community college to another school and really started kind of pushing my forms and really started experimenting with what I'm doing. And then the question always arises in clay, like, why are you making these pots that are clearly not meant to function? I had no good answer from my teacher, so it kind of like, right about this time that these questions came up, we had an artist named Jason Briggs, who was doing like really amazing wheel throwing sculpture, but I feel like his still influenced my current body of work. But I was so blown away that he was making these out of wheel throwing parts. I was like, this is it, like I can make a wheel throwing sculpture and I don't have to worry about the functionality of the piece because I didn't really care about it. Which kind of led me to this work, was just kind of like my BFA work. So these are all wheel thrown, still wood fired. I really don't know anything else exists at this point, kind of up through undergrad. I love wood firing, so it's kind of been a part of what I do. I don't do it anymore, but I love it. So these are kind of based off of like natural forms. All of this fun jazz, like kind of some weird growths, kind of trees. So then kind of from there, I went to Edinburgh University for grad school. When I went in, I was making very similar work, kind of based on what I was doing in undergrad. The whole time I was making that work, my professors would always harp on me about how sexual it was. I fully didn't see it, but that kind of led me to like this body of work, which was all kind of like an exploration of sexuality. These are based off male sex toys. And really kind of, I started thinking a lot about like how personal like sexuality is to people, at least to me. Like I was thinking a lot about like, I don't like to talk about it, which is a really, really funny thing to make work about something you don't want to talk about. So when I was making this work, I went to Watershed Center for the Ceramic Arts. I was probably like 23. It was me, and there was one of 2 guys there. I was the youngest person there by like 20, 30 years. It's basically like a bunch of older ladies and me being 23. So they were probably like 40, which now doesn't seem old to me, but at the time, like, and they made us do these presentations, and I was like, oh my God, I have to sit and talk about this work to a bunch of ladies. I was petrified. Which was kind of like a glorious moment in my life because I realized I was making this work about something I don't want to talk about. They were all super sweet to me, like, you did great. I'm sure they all know, like they've been around longer than me. But that really caused me to change my work and kind of really influenced what I was doing. So I was living with a roommate at the time. He had a wonderful fat cat named Ernie. He is also one of those crazy people that loves to dress his animals up. Awesome. So it really started to kind of get me thinking about like how we treat animals. I mean, I do have a cat, I don't dress, but I do try to dress him up. He doesn't like it. But we do occasionally, like we've got a Christmas hat for him, he gets pissed every time. So it really kind of got me thinking about like how we're treating animals, like they don't want to be in a sweater. I mean, he's from Pittsburgh, so he would put like every Pens game, like Pens jerseys on the cats. Hated it, obviously, but super cute. So kind of like working with that like super grossly cute theme of my work and really starting to think about how we live with our animals and kind of how they exist within our lives. All of these are really quite small at this point. I'm working really small from, skip as a whole, so wood firing to grad school, no wood kiln. So then it kind of forced me to kind of start experimenting. I started using porcelain on these like small, kind of really sexual pieces. Some of them were like, 3 to 4 inches small, so I was working really, really, really small at this point. this piece is still pretty small, but I started kind of working a little more with that theme. This piece was kind of based off of when I was at community college. There was this girl that would bring her dog to class with her. It was more like science fiction literature class. And we basically just like sat there and she would put her little tiny dog in a bag in front of me, and it just pissed me off so bad every day because it would like distract me while I'm in class. Just the dog just, you know, hanging out the purse, staring at me like, how do you expect me to function? So it kind of got me thinking a lot about like how people tote their animals around, kind of like accessories, toys, all these like really weird things that, you know, that we really do to our pets. So then I actually ended up switching my clay body, which I didn't even include any of my thesis show in grad school because I hate that work. But I switched from making small work to these large scale, like almost life-size dogs. There's one that's broken hanging out up by the studio over there. But really kind of focusing on kind of pets in our lives and kind of how they exist. Then I got out of grad school, and it was the most liberating thing in my life to kind of come from, you know, the last year of grad school. I completely changed, started working large scale, and then it was like, I had to fill a gallery space, you know, so there's like the stress of like, oh my God, I have all this work. So I was making like life-size dogs every other week of another one. So it's kind of like rifling through work just to kind of make it to actually fill the space. Then I go to Odyssey Clayworks down in Asheville, North Carolina, and when I got there, the first thing I was like, I'm gonna just take the time and make the pieces that I really want to make, which was the wrinkliest animals I could possibly find. So I've always really been kind of interested in like kind of the quality of clay to look really soft and tactile, like you really want to squeeze these things. You know, I was still kind of, this is kind of the theme of like putting our pets up on a pedestal. I still, you know, like after grad school, trying to really figure out what I wanted to do with my work was, that theme was great, but I don't think I had found what I really, really wanted to do at that point. Kept making, again, picking the wrinkliest animals I could possibly find, just Google searching, yeah, hairless animals essentially. Stumbled across the naked mole rat, which I knew nothing about at that point in time. Started making it, so when I'm making this piece, doing a lot of research on what the naked mole rat is, kind of like their bodies, they're fascinating animals. As I was making this, I learned that they lack sensory nerves in their skin, so you could like pinch the crap out of them and they're not going to feel it. They also have like some gene that makes them kind of immune to cancer. And as I'm making this piece, one of my friends passes away of cancer. Not lung cancer, that was the obvious one to kind of work with. So this is kind of when my work really, I think I started to figure out what I really wanted to do with my work, and my work starts to become a lot more personal kind of to my actual story of life. So making this guy, he's smoking all the cigarettes he wants to because he can't get cancer. But kind of really enjoying like where my work is starting to head at this point. I went from Odyssey Clayworks to Baltimore for another like long-term residency position. When I first got there, my friend Kevin lived there. I was my fiance back there. So we first moved to Baltimore. I feel like we were both super excited to move to Baltimore. It was the harshest transition of my life, probably, to move from like hippie Asheville town to like Baltimore. So when I got there, I was drinking way too much. She can attest to that. It was awful, so I kind of made it like, I had alcoholism in my family. Like I lived with my uncle when I was younger, he moved in our house, terrible drunk, awful kind of period of my time. So it really got me thinking about that, and this is kind of me working through my issues of alcoholism, essentially. He's got human ears. I feel like if you've ever lived with an alcoholic, you can tell them time and time again, you drink too much, that's not too good, you know. You always get the answer, well, I'll quit tomorrow type thing. So really kind of starting to bring that personal narrative into my work, which I've always really kind of been, but it's like the work I've always been drawn to, and I think at this point I've really started to figure that out. Also moving to Baltimore, drastic change in transportation. So coming from Asheville, everybody drives like an old crappy car, like Subaru, like a 1990 Subaru is like the normal car, or like you drive this giant ass truck because you actually use it because it's the country, kind of. But then you move to Baltimore and you see the people driving like their Escalades, their giant cars, rims. All of that was fascinating to me. It kind of just blew me away how like the car was such, like, it's a symbol of like your status. And it wasn't about the like functionality of your, like, you don't need, why are you driving a giant car in the city? Homeless, you know? And then people driving, awful, you know, like people are pissed all the time. I feel like I'm the same way. You put me in, I'm like a pretty chill person to like get behind the wheel. Next thing you know, you're screaming like out the window at people. I mean, just yesterday we saw someone clipping his toenails while he's driving. Actually, it's amazing the things you see people doing in a car. And maybe she's pushing me to make a piece about that now. I don't know if I will, but I love kind of that, like looking out and kind of observing what's going on around me. Still kind of going with the automobile thing. So if you're driving down the road, you see the people taking selfies when they're driving. Terrifying, especially when you're like getting on the Beltway in Baltimore and like cars rip by you going 80 and the person just like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so terrifyingly like absurd, but it's so, at the same time, it's pretty funny. I like to put a little bit of humor in my work, obviously, to kind of poke fun of these really weird things that I think are terrible, and kind of actually hopefully start a conversation about it. It's not like, you're awful, you shouldn't do that, but kind of joke about it and laugh about it a little bit. Living in Baltimore, it is a really dirty city. I'm from Corning, New York, which is like a small town in upstate. Yeah, and Baltimore's gross. It's hot, it's gross. I made this piece like in the summertime thinking about like this guy like swimming in a pool would be so great, but it's just like filthy. Like the Bay in Baltimore is so polluted. All over the news when there was like some tourists from Chicago jumped in there, front page of the news, it's like, tourists jump in Bay, you know, like, hilarious, but like also, like it's surrounded by water that you can't get in because it's so polluted, and it really, like, I'm thinking a lot about that at that point, and kind of my disgust for Baltimore in general. So then kind of leading kind of the same theme with this one, like, you know, this is kind of like the guy hanging out in the city, dreaming about the trees, which now that I live out here, I'm like, I'm going to the city now, you know, it's like that weird conundrum of like, you're here, but you always want to be there. At least I'm the worst with it. She will also attest to this, that I'm always like, I want something, that I get it, and like, oh man, that seems so much cooler, like just over, you know, 4 steps to the left. So it's kind of that like same thought process behind like what we're doing, and you know, always dreaming about being where you're not, essentially. So this is getting to like newer work. So I made this during the election. So he's sitting on top of the United States. You know, the pig is dressed up as a clown, which I'm sure he doesn't like. And the clown is just parading around and like having the time of his life, feeling like you're being led somewhere where you don't really want to go. I don't really want to make political art. This is me trying to figure out what I'm doing. I feel like the place I am influences my work so much. Also during the election, which was, I feel like it was impossible not to kind of get wrapped up in all of the politics going on at that point. Made this guy, which takes me back to my time in Nashville. So, which I feel like I talked about this with some people. No, this was someone else. So, when I lived in Nashville, we went to the director of this place you guys at bought us tickets to go to Funkle Fest, which was a Grateful Dead cover band festival, which was awesome. Had a great time. But the guy sleeping next to us happened to be the clown for the festival. His name was Kenny the Clown. He lived in his early 90s Dodge Caravan. Fascinating human being. So I've only ever made like 2 pieces really based off real people, this being one of them. So as we're at this festival, like Kenny's just, he would come down, like to our tents here, he's right behind us, you know, in this van, dude, God only knows what in his van. Comes out, maybe like starts hanging out with us, you know, he's clowning around with us, making us like perverted balloon animals. Awesome, right? Next thing you know, he pulls a magnifying glass out of his pocket and says, I'm going to teach you guys how to do solar hits. Does anyone know what a solar hit is? Probably not. Neither did I. And he walks around with a magnifying glass. So it's when you smoke your pot with a magnifying glass. You think about the kid burning the kids. It's hilarious, right? It's like, this is the most efficient way to smoke weed. It's like, it's remarkably fast if you do it right. He's also going blind from doing it too much. Awesome. Fascinating human being. As he's doing all this, gets done, after he's doing his solo, he's like, I gotta go grab my stilts and still walk and juggle for the kids. Awesome. So I felt compelled to make a piece about him and kind of immortalize him in this sense. But that's not actual, he doesn't look like that, but he should. Which this kind of brings me up into the latest piece that I've actually finished. Again, I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I'm doing because my work is so based off of where I am. Kind of moving here, this is kind of political, kind of not. I'm trying to get away from it, but really thinking about like cats are always, when we think about Egyptian culture, they're always put up on their pedestal. Cats are really highly revered. Stewart's really highly revered, which is my cat also. But also kind of political, like this guy's standing on top of kind of Roman-esque form, blindfolded. Again, kind of that same feeling like we don't know what's happening in our current culture because of current politics and all of that, which, again, I hate politics, honestly, so I'm trying not to get in that, but I'm kind of moving away from all of that and starting to figure out what my life is actually changing into as I'm here at Touchstone, which has been a wonderful experience, kind of being here, living and getting to meet all of these wonderful people all summer. That's all I